The Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Every single Wednesday we be here discussing about things that matter. That is, of course, the Uganda We Want program here on Church of Uganda Family TV. And a reminder that it is a partnership with the Interreligious Council of Uganda. So here today, we are going to be talking about things that are very, very current, things that are happening currently in your different localities. That is, of course, the election period. And when we talk about the election period, we don't center on the election day, but the entire process before, during, and after. That's what we'll always be talking about. So today we are going to center much onto that call, that national call, to make sure that we have a peaceful, free, fair, and credible election come 2026. But of course, everything that comes about before and after, just like I mentioned, and also during this whole period of time is what determines to either peaceful or things. Because you've seen nations that after an election period, it's violence because of people not agreeing to results or whatsoever. Even during elections, you see people fighting each other. But how can we make sure that we have a peaceful one? And that's what we're going to be discussing about right here today. So you want to sit back and join us the entire 2 hours, because it is always from 10 to midday. So I want to welcome you to Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Luke Majumba Linaitwe, and I'm privileged to host 2 people here. But for now, we are going to be starting with a face that you have been familiar with from time and time. That is Reverend Canon Grace Kaiso, who is already here with us, and he is the team lead for Peace, Livelihoods, and Governance at the Interreligious Council of Uganda. Good morning, Canon.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you once again.
Thank you so much. It is a real pleasure for me too, and honor. A real privilege, really, to be able to be speaking to the country.
Start by greeting our people out there.
Warm greetings to you, our dear viewers, and perhaps some listeners. From the Interreligious Council of Uganda, I bring very warm greetings. We're here again to reflect together on matters that affect each one of us, really. We are here to, as will be outlined by the presenter, to have very deep conversations around our responsibilities as citizens, especially given this critical time, the electoral season.
So maybe for starters, before we even dive into what the mandate of IRCU is, well, according to you, what is a peaceful, free, fair, and credible election?
Thank you for the question. I would rather, if possible, ask ourselves, why do we bother ourselves about a peaceful election? Why should we bother?
Because there will not be peace if we don't have a peaceful one.
Yes, but I think you need to be seeing these things in the broader context. Uganda is part of the East African community.
Oh, yes.
And so if we were to be looking at the East African community, the countries in East African community, you could start with the DRC, and you appreciate that there is political upheaval in DRC. There is no stability. In fact, we are welcoming refugees literally every day.
That's right.
When you think of South Sudan, who is a member of the East African community, we have almost a failing state. You know, the tensions and the existing political situation there is forcing many people to come as refugees. I was in Kiandongo 2.5 weeks ago, and I saw buses come and arrive. And then you have Burundi. You know, the situation there is also not very stable. Kenya,
last week we were celebrating the Refugee Day. And
Yeah.
we have 1 point something million just in the country.
If you go to Kianongo, that's what you see. We have refugees from Eritrea, from Ethiopia, from South Sudan, from Burundi, from Kenya. So what does that say to us as Ugandans? We have been a safe haven for the refugees. So if we ourselves don't take care of our environment and ensure that there's continued peace and stability in the country, where shall we run to? Do we run to South Sudan? Shall we run to Congo? So there is therefore a critical need for the citizens of this country to appreciate
Peace
that
that's
we
already-
have a great responsibility to ensure political stability here, because we won't have any place to run to. You've heard even America, they're all closing us up. So I think the idea here is that we need to wake up to the reality that peace is a precious commodity. Stability is a precious commodity that we all must nurture, we all must take care of.
Do people know that?
I think partly that's why we're here, to catalyze, to help sensitize our population. Because sometimes the daily challenges, the daily issues that we face, the economic hardships, can blind us to the reality that this is the worst place we are in. True, there are real challenges that we need to address. But I think the people need to know that if you have the space to go to your garden peacefully and cultivate, if you have space maybe to go to your office and work, and there is a sense in which you can work on your aspirations and you make steps towards realizing them, provided we still continue to have that space. That is what we need to guard. And also it is a reawakening also, of course, on those in charge of the political management of our country. In fact, all the different institutions within our country. So the political management must wake up the reality that actually you need citizens who are happy and appreciate that they have space for exercising their rights for you to maintain a stable nation. So the call, as we will probably go into it, is this sense of awareness. You ask the question whether are we conscious? But sometimes I think we are not. We are not, as I said, because of the political, the economic challenges. But sometimes the people who are in charge of various institutions, when they are there, they feel like, they can do anything that they want without paying regard to the consequences of some of the choices that they make, especially in light of the stability of the country.
Okay. So what is the mandate of IRCU in having peaceful, in regards to having these peaceful, fair, credible elections?
IRCU,
because I believe it is an entity, given its different arms, the faiths, it's an entity that can really mobilize
yes,
the Christians, the Muslims, all those people.
Yes, yeah. The Inter-Religious Council of Uganda was established in 2001, and it was read out of recognition by the faith leadership at that time that they need to collaborate, that they have shared values through their holy scriptures, values of peace, values of love, values of ensuring that people live fullness of life. That those values would be best enhanced if they worked together. So they established this platform as a platform of addressing issues of shared concern in the social, in the economic, and in the political spheres and the spiritual spheres of our country. So you should look at it as really a platform for action, for responding to issues of concern. And so certainly an issue like the elections, which has the potential for both stability and instability, that would take interest.
Okay. Now, sometimes in some regions, actually even currently, we still face issues of faiths dominating particular positions. And I recently paid attention to the president's address. It was like, there should be a limit to what we call addressing the people. Because you find in a region, for us here, we are going to be voting a Muslim. For us here, we have to vote a Catholic. For us here, we have to vote an Anglican. Doesn't that also cause unrest in some bits?
Yes, I think part of our role of IRCU is to sensitize the religious leaders to appreciate their unique and privileged position in society, and to appreciate that they are called to serve the people of God, all the people of God, because they are all the creation of God. Now, of course, as human beings, we have created these structures. This is all human structuring. You know, you have the different denomination, and so sometimes people fail to appreciate that their primary calling is to serve the people of God. To serve the people of all the people of God. Your calling as a religious leader in a community is to serve God's people. It is not to serve your own, denomination members. You know, exactly. That is, if anything, is a path, for serving. But it is not the only way that you are called to serve. And so it is really unfortunate when religious leaders don't appreciate that. And part of our role as the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda is to reawaken, because religious leaders also can be derailed, because of personal interest and whatnot. Yes. But for us as Inter-Religious Council is to reawaken them to the reality that God has called them to serve the people of God, all of them, just as God does. He gives us sunshine, all of us. He gives us free air and whatnot. He doesn't discriminate. And so, for religious leaders, that's the positioning they must take in society, to appreciate that they are called to serve the community, to improve the welfare of all God's people, not the welfare of your members of your churches or your mosque. Okay. So the challenge there for us is still to continue to reawaken the religious leaders to appreciate that, because when you take that kind of path of trying to use your influence for what we would call narrow political interests or narrow religious interests, then you're failing in your calling, and there can be consequences. Because you see, we take the position of being available to everybody, because we know if there are issues of misunderstanding and there is conflict, then people can feel free to come to you because you're not partisan. So it is the greater responsibility that we have towards building a stable nation and a cohesive nation that constrains us, from taking those partisan positions.
Okay. Wow, very interesting indeed. And now I had earlier communicated that we shall be joined by the Manager Peace and Governance at IRCU. Joanna, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
All right. So you found us discussing the mandate of IRCU in regards to ensuring peaceful, credible, and free elections come 2026. So maybe if you can pitch in a little bit there, so we can continue with the discussion.
Okay, in terms of the mandate of IRCU, one of the things that we do, actually, if I could give you a conceptualization of what IRCU is as a council, it's more like how you see the Office of the Prime Minister in terms of it being the leader of government business. So we are the leader of the religious leaders and the institutions and all the subsidiaries. So one of the things we do is to ensure that we are working in harmony towards not only peaceful elections, but also the issues that are in the web of interconnectedness that influence also the elections. It's not only just about politics, but it's also about the economy, it's about well-being and other issues. And some of the things that we do, most importantly, is capacity building.
Okay.
And like he mentioned, yes, sometimes religious leaders can get derailed, but that could be as a result of not having the capacity to do what they should be able to do. For instance, at the Interreligious Council of Uganda, we have the IPeace. It's a peace institute that is about peace education. And in fact, I was very glad to come with this. This is the Civic Education and Voter Mobilization Handbook for religious leaders. And some of the things that we do is to educate them on the ways that they can promote peaceful elections, on the role that they have, on the lines that they are not supposed to go over when they are ensuring that people are engaged, are participating in elections, and so on and so forth. So I think for now what I can pitch in is capacity building as well as monitoring and evaluation to see to it that they are delivering as expected from the council.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, very interesting. So, Canon, I'm going back to you. How does IRCU ensure neutrality in regards to the other issue that I had mentioned of that maybe not a Catholic bishop campaigning ahead for the Catholic, maybe Christian, things like that, or even any other faith, things like that? How do you where does IRCU come in to ensure that at least if it is campaigning, no campaigning, if it is campaigning, campaign for all?
Yeah, you see, our role as you'd call it as a secretariat is to sensitize.
Okay.
We're not like the police of religious leaders. We are there to sensitize. Just as Joanna has said, we have developed resources to help religious leaders appreciate how to conduct themselves like in sensitive seasons like the elections. And so what we do is again to share that information, to share with the religious leaders that, by the way, in light of our calling, I think you need to be guided, you know, that the path you're choosing will have disastrous consequences for the country and will undermine all of us as religious leaders of our role and responsibility. So it is really awakening. We do engage. If we sense that the religious leader has generally picked up a political role, then we do encourage that maybe he chooses to say now, for now, I am no longer bishop here. I have chosen, to go and compete in competitive politics. Our worry is when the religious leader uses his position in which he is, and therefore his influence, and as a platform for campaigning in partisan candidates. We are not saying that religious leaders don't have personal choices, but you see, for every responsibility you have, there are constraints. And I think these are some of the constraints. The constraint that as a public religious leader who is called to serve all the people of God and who is interested in becoming a mediator if there are issues, in the political arena, then the constraint is that you keep your preferences private and carry out your public responsibility in a manner that upholds the position of the religious leaders.
Oh, very interesting. I remember I was a little bit young. We had the presidential debate. So what other achievements has the IRCU registered in regards to the past elections so that they can complement further work to be done?
Some of the areas, I believe, is partnerships with various fora, and not just within government, but also with the citizen in terms of national dialogue. We did have the national dialogue. At this point, it is still a bit of a halt because there are other issues that we need to combat. But I think the way that we have been able to campaign to bring people together so that this is an effort, a joint effort for all citizens to be able to contribute towards the pacification of our society is a very great milestone. And also building on the capacities of religious leaders as well as creating a peace architecture that is not just at the national level, because when people hear Interreligious Council of Uganda, they think it is just the national level. But we have an architecture that goes from not only at the national level, but also the district. We have our sub-regional peace and stabilization committees. We have people at the parish level. So I think creating that architecture and continuing to strengthen it so that we can deliver better on issues concerning people who are experiencing grievances that can lead to frustration and aggression during the electoral season is one of the things that I can say that we have really contributed to.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's also strengthening the religious institutions and creating an environment where citizens feel that they are heard and they can contribute without fear.
Okay. And now that brings a question about the grassroots mobilization when it comes to raising such a big call to ensure that we have peaceful elections and all that. What strategies do we have to make sure that we reach each and every person, each and every native in the country?
Thank you very much. We have, as you're aware, faith communities are present at different levels.
That's right.
And so part of our role and responsibility is to provide a resource like this to our religious leaders so that they wake up to their, what can we do? Because people need to be helped to be able to appreciate what they're expected to do. And so through that resource, the religious leaders are able to appreciate what is the importance of an election, why is it critical for the nation, what therefore the various responsibilities of different stakeholders in an electoral process. So with equipped with that resource, the expectation then is that the priests and imams will be able to share informed information, and equip the congregations, on the benefits of participating in an election, the benefits of maintaining a peaceful environment, and the benefits of conducting themselves responsibly after the election, and the focus on the well-being and the stability of the country as an objective, as a goal. So that is the strategy really. We have now developed another framework, that still is meant to create a sense of momentum within the regions about the need for peaceful and credible elections. And I think my colleague can explain a bit of the framework that we have developed.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, so we had a launch 2 days ago for the National Mobilization for Peaceful and Credible Elections 2026, where there are various stakeholders that made a commitment to engaging, because we realized that when it comes to electoral peace, it's not just about a single institution that has to do it, but it has to be multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder. So this national mobilization is a joint effort with institutions from political parties, from security agencies, academia, the media, who are also very important. And what we are doing at this point is to visit the 17 sub-regions of Uganda. And then we are focusing on about 4 thematic areas. One of them is naturally electoral peace. Then we also have social accountability, household income and poverty eradication, and also
ethical leadership.
Yes, ethical leadership, yes, which also falls within the domain of social accountability and transparency. And the reason we are doing this is because these issues are all affecting the way they are affecting voter behavior. And we need to have these dialogues so that we can have an understanding of the perceptions of the people on the ground in the grassroots. And once they give us that information, we can be able to create structures and systems that can be able to address this. And not just that we are doing it prior to the elections, that we are procrastinating. But this is something that we are expecting to be ongoing, because we have now created a quorum and forum where people are now having the political will and societal will to continue this kind of dialogue come even the next elections. So in terms of our implementation roadmap, we are looking at, within each region, having a day for youth. It's very important to have the youth separate because they are the highest population. And it being the highest population means clearly you're the major players, you're the big players, you're the ones that really need to be listened to, and also have influence and strengthen their influence within politics. So we're having that day for youth, and we are going through all of these thematic areas to get their perceptions and also give them training and information. Like for instance, with some of the partners that we have, for instance, Julius New Leadership Center at Makerere University, who are experts in issues concerning peace and security. Then we also have a partnership with the National Consultative Forum, which we have worked with before in 2021, and other partners within police. So we are going to distribute, for instance, electoral codes of conduct for the media, for the security sector, and even for the political parties, because they need this information. Yes, there's a likelihood that there will be violence, but it could be from either side. It could be from government side, it could also be from the youth or general citizenry. But they should have that information on where is the line that I can cross, or where can I not cross. And we also have, for the second day, a multi-sectoral engagement dialogue, where we're going to have people from all sectors, basically, including elders. We also feel like farmers are a very special category. We are having the media, we're having the political parties, and the security forces, because we also need to listen to what they have to say. They do have gaps. We are a relatively, I don't want to say fragile state because that's a bit sensitive, but then we are on the rise in terms of democratic deepening. And we understand that these institutions too have flaws. We have heard of things like the rotten apple theory in police, where one individual can influence and tip over and almost everyone else can become corrupt. But these are realities within our society, and we as religious leaders, who many perceive as the conscience of the nation, as impartial, as being listened to. According to the Afrobarometer, 67%, we are the highest and most trusted within public institutions. So we need to listen to them and try to find out how we can build their capacities too, so that they can ensure that they are staying within their lane and mandates. And on the last day, on the third day, within each region, we are going to have prayers for the elections. It's very important for people to congregate, because faith is something that is grounding and enables them as a mantra to continuously be ethical and also sound in decision making when it comes to the elections. That's a bit of the roadmap.
So the dates are already stipulated, or they'll come in late?
I mean, we launched 2 days ago. We launched 2 days ago. So right now we have our tentative areas, sub-regions that we are going, including in Busoga, including in Masaka. So once the launch is done, then all we have to do is begin implementation.
We shall be able
For
to
6 months.
we shall be able to share concrete dates for when we'll be in the regions. So we're just putting final touches on those plans.
You did mention about the youth, and I'm keenly interested. you know, their trends and whatsoever. How are you willing to engage them? And also, I believe this is a moment to impact knowledge into them, because somehow they are used, somehow they are things like that. You find them going off course, and the whole burden has to go. These are youth. That's what they will say. But in the end, there is an influence behind that. So how are you going to be able to engage them and make sure that they get this information?
The first thing I have to say is that usually when someone asks me about youth, it's a very complicated category of persons because it's also socially created. We are humans. I fall within that category of between 18 and 35. So I'm 33. But I don't have that identity in the self in terms of youth. I am highly educated. Other youth are also highly educated. But it just so happens that they are always continuously blamed for behaving in a certain type of way. But then we actually are majority of the citizenry. Why is it that we are not looking at how we're going to engage those who are non-youth? Why not that? But anyway, in terms of, yes, they are disenfranchised, and it's a reality that they are, because those who are in power have been in power for a very, very long time. And so the spaces are limited. But I think it just goes without saying that even the implementation roadmap that I've told you in terms of having that special category for youth themselves is a mechanism through which we will reach them. So I don't know what more to add to that, because this is an issue of psychology, I believe, whenever we are talking about issues concerning youth. It's an issue of psychology, but at the same time, it is not definitive that youth are always to blame. They have an awakening in society that we are disenfranchised, we need a political space, and so yes, that drives them to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of them wanting to get into those spaces. But of course, as religious leaders, we are doing this at the pulpits. We are speaking on issues concerning tolerance. We are speaking on respect for pluralism and diversity. But at the same time, I don't want to get into it so much because I'm very academic, but when it comes to even issues concerning tolerance, sometimes someone will be like, but why? You know, like you need to rationalize it. Okay. But at the end of the day, the religious leaders are doing a lot in terms of capacity building. It's not just Interreligious Council of Uganda, we have subsidiaries. The Uganda Joint Christian Council, the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. Within our framework at Interreligious Council, we have the youth, UIN, the Uganda Youth Interfaith Network, and the Uganda Women of Faith Network. And they are really doing much. They are often on TV, they're doing campaigns, they're doing different podcasts, they're reaching out to the people within their groups so that they can have an understanding, and they're having their own dialogues. And they're really reaching out to the religious leaders who are at the higher level to advocate for electoral peace, for sure.
Well, Canon, we are being used, the youth. We are being influenced by those who have their own interests, and unfortunately, we are comfortably falling for that because apparently that is what the system is. And looking at such instance that we are in as a nation, what advice would you give youth out there? Because I believe you have gone through these stages, but also the trends are changing.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the youth attract our attention because they are the majority. And so when we are talking about peaceful stability, we are actually talking about their future, their present and future. Because the choices that we make today will influence the future.
Right.
And so that's why they attract our attention. And so the challenge really we have is that we, the adults, have chosen to use our position and experience to think that it is us who know the right paths to take. There is some element of truth to that. in that we have experience, or there are lessons we've learned through recklessness or poor choices, which we want to guard the young people, from. But the reality also is that the environment has changed, the dynamics has changed. I mean, just look at the social media, look at the whole dynamics in society, where young people are more entrepreneurial, they are innovative, but they don't have the space to do that. They don't have sufficient support to follow their dreams, So it is easy when you have a large number of people who might be dissatisfied to guard against their dissatisfaction turning into aggression, And I think that's where the anxiety lies. But also the recognition that if these people are in the majority, then they really should be responsible for shaping their future. So we are headed this idea of the national dialogue, because this is about now almost 8 years ago, 10 years ago, when we started. 2001, I think, was the time when we gave birth to this thinking, because we began to realize that society was changing. We are working with assumptions, that are not relevant to the dynamics of what is going on. So we thought that let's create the space. Let's listen to each other. Let the adults listen to the young people. Let the young people listen to the adults. So the frameworks we had established for the national dialogue would facilitate that. And I think if we had fulfilled our dream, we would be at a different place. Because the idea was now to say, let us reevaluate. How are we organized as a society? Is the way we are organized going to deliver the aspirations of the young people? If not, so what changes do we need to make? Then, where are we putting the investments? Where are we investing? Are we investing in areas that will enable this big group to benefit? Or is it that we are still holding on to the tap and just letting a little to drop, to the hungry young people? So it is for us on the part of IRCU is a very deep frustration, because we think that as religious leaders we had acted in time to get this country reorganized, in a manner that pays attention to the various needs of various sectors in society. But more importantly, harnessing, our capacities, our capacities in health, our capacities in education, our capacities in the good climate that we have. And that the idea was really now to say, let this country move into the direction where everybody feels, yes, this is a more promising future for Uganda. So I'm just sharing a bit of our frustration. But, we don't live in the past. We are people who are constantly rethinking. And part of this initiative of mobilizing the citizens towards appreciating the need for a peaceful and credible election, it is very intentional. It is very, very intentional. We are saying, let's awaken our citizens about this reality, the importance of peace and a credible election. Because it is not enough just to have the election. The elections are very important seasons. They should have provided the opportunity. I mean, if you asked me, how would you organize an election in this country? I think I would start by saying the election is about the people of Uganda. And so I wouldn't worry too much about the political parties. Because now every political party developed what they call a manifesto. How they develop it, we don't know. Maybe it is scientific or AI, maybe. But the realities of that we are in, for me, I would start by saying, Uganda, we want to go for an election. So, where are we in the area of health? Where are we at the moment? Where should we be? So you convene all the health professionals who are at it day by day. to reflect on where we are as a country and where we should be going. Even agriculture, I would organize people, the farmers. Would organize now the youth. We would organize the people in the security to ask, how are we organized in light of these global insecurities that we see and the improvement in technology? Yeah? So what do we need to do? So that the agenda is set by sectors who are active and who understand the dynamics and who are able to compare where we are with other countries. So then you will now develop what you would call a national manifesto. And what we would be then asking is, you, NRM, tell us how you will help us realize these aspirations we set for ourselves. You Changulanyi, come and tell us how you plan to help us realize these aspirations. So we will be able to judge not on the basis of we will be able to judge on the basis of the plans they have to operationalize our vision as citizens. But now they are coming to us with this is their vision. So if they don't fulfill it, on what account, how would you call them to accountability? So there's a sense in which we have the assumptions we work with, the historical, the colonial, these colonial frameworks of political parties as the framework that deepens democracy. We know that it doesn't. So why do we deceive ourselves and continue to work like that? So I think we're saying part of what we really are pushing as Intelligence Council of Uganda is a reawakening to our reality. Let's be alert to the realities that we're seeing, and let's begin to act purposefully, about what we see, about the trends that we see, in the interest of building a promising future for Uganda.
Wow. Thank you so much, Canon.
I'm sorry, but I would like to interject a bit.
It's just a bit, okay.
Yes, just a bit. On this issue of youth, I'm actually very sensitive about it. And I don't mean to play devil's advocate. But I think we, as an African society that is allegedly based on the principles of Ubuntu, I am because we are. We need to try to find a way of eliminating these classifications and looking at all humans equally. Because even if I asked you, what is the definition of youth? What would you say? Apart from giving me age bracket. What exactly constitutes youth? Are you talking about youth who are unemployed? There are intersectionalities. Because even within the security forces, there are youth. Within government, who are working as technical officers, there are youth. Within religious leaders, there are youth. So it seems like we are creating a victimhood identity and a collective guilt tripping over a specific category of people without even having a proper conceptualization of who they are. And without having that conceptualization, how do we expect to influence them in a specific direction? And how sure are we that they are not already enlightened and having the capacity to do so? So I think this is something that I just really wanted to put forward since I have an opportunity to be here on Family TV. Okay. So
and I think you see the assumption therefore is like, you see, we are working with the assumption that because we are older, then we know more. Now, that's a fallacy now.
Yes.
Our young people are so well connected to the globe. They are connected to every kind of experience through the media, the new fresh technology. So young people know even more than what we presuppose that we know. And so the platform for conversation should not be we older people advising young people. I think
intergenerational politics.
I think we should create platform for intergenerational conversation that are respectful of ideas across ages.
Yeah.
It's a very important one. Wow. quite interesting. I believe we have to first take a short break, but when we return, we are going to be talking about preventing election violence. Remember in 2021, 2020, what happened in November? It was all because of violence, and some people managed to lose their lives. So when we come back, that's what we shall be tackling.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Welcome back. You are watching the Uganda We Want here on Church of Uganda Family TV, and just like we always mention, it's a partnership with the Interreligious Council of Uganda. And here with me are two partnered people, and basically what I like about their positions, there is peace in there. One is the Manager of Peace and Governance, and we also have Karen, who is the Team Lead Peace, Livelihoods and Governance as well. But it is a pleasure that you joined us this morning from 10 and until midday. We shall be discussing this. Now, right now we're going to be talking about preventing electoral violence. And I'll start immediately with Canon, maybe to tell us the warning signs. Because I remember when we were having the Kawempe elections, people depicted that this is going to be violent. And indeed, by the close of everything, people had violence was detected here and there. Remember everything that happened. So what are those early warning signs that if this is happening this way, we could be heading for something not good?
I think the warning signs start with the legislation. You see in the previous elections, in every election, there are issues that emerge. And so the tendency is to try and the Parliament, if you like, or Minister of Justice, to try and pick up those issues and ensure that they are properly addressed through the legal framework. And over the last two cycles, there have been recommendations for change in certain areas of our electoral process. Now, sadly, the Ministry of Justice and maybe executive and the Parliament have failed to respond to those gaps that have been raised in the electoral process, the legislation. So that's where it starts really, where the no consensus on some of the legal provisions that govern the electoral process, especially those that have been raised as a result of the previous election. So that is where we need to start. And because if there is no consensus, you are building grievance. It means that there are areas in the legal framework that the participants, the stakeholders are not happy about. And so since this is a very contentious game, you need to be building some consensus as you move forward. So the legal framework, existing legal framework, can be, if it has not, consensus not built around it, it can be a source of already discord in the electoral process. and then the conduct of the various stakeholders. You have political parties. Many of the political parties have codes of conduct. In fact, the Electoral Commission has codes of conduct. And some other parties have even gone ahead to create their own codes of conduct. Now, if there is no respect and honoring of those codes of conduct, then that can be, you know how sometimes our countries work. We import things, so we can import a code of conduct pack and put it in. But actually, when you ask, you may ask even the head of the party, say, what are the key elements of your code of conduct? And they have no idea. And yes, are supposed to reinforce. So those are now the challenges we have, that the codes of conduct established are not known, and they are not honored. Then, of course, you have, even in your area, media, you have a code of conduct, that should guide you. Security forces have got codes of conduct that they're supposed to guide their conduct in the electoral process. So it is the honoring of the codes of conduct that is. If we see that people are not aware and they are not therefore sensitized around them to honor them, and there are no mechanism of enforcement, then that can be a source of discord. Then you can have also the whole general population, this mindset of appreciating diversity. When we talk about democracy, which is really democracy about diverse views and there are principles that guide how those views should be expressed, freedom of gathering and space to speak. Now, if there are constraints around that, then you know that we are likely to have issues in our election cycle. So the way you were saying, the signs, those for us would be the signs that people are not willing to accommodate diversity. They think that everything must be, you must be either everything must be yellow, everything must be blue, everything must be green, So this thing of the fact that God has created us in diversity. So diversity is a gift that we need to appreciate. But I think once selfishness comes in, it means that we really are denying each other the opportunity to be. And many Christians think that is a good thing to do. But it is not. God is a God of diversity. Is the whole world being of everybody. That's why he provides the sun to everybody, rain to everybody, oxygen to everybody. It is this mindset, selfish mindset, that derails even the believers to begin to work in ways that are denying the other life, the other being and thriving. So we are saying that those are some for us the signs. And that's why in our strategy, our engagements are very strategic. We want to engage with institutions, because we believe that they have constitutional mandate that they must live up to.
Right.
So our plan is to engage Electoral Commission. We have already engaged the Electoral Commission, actually. We engage the different institutions, the media. We have engaged
the political parties, the umbrella of the political parties.
Communications.
Uganda Media Sector Working Group?
Yes, but the
UCC, Uganda Communications Commission.
Yeah, we have engaged with them.
Uganda National Bureau of Standards.
National Bureau of Standards.
URA.
So we are planning to engage CMI. We are planning to engage the CDF.
IGP.
We are planning to engage the IGP, Special General Police, because we know the centers where if people are not living and prepared to work within their mandate, trouble could come. But that's also we're engaging in the citizens. You know, that's why we're going to the regions. That people begin to appreciate that the elections is but a short, it's a process. And it's not a matter, shouldn't be a matter of life and death, although it has become now.
Jeez.
Yeah. So helping our citizens to know, value your neighbor beyond their religion, beyond their political affiliation. Because if you're sick, you're not going to call the chairman of NRM or FDC to say, chairman, my son is sick or he has been bitten by a snake. It is your neighbor that you run to. It is your neighbor that's going to respond to those immediate needs or crises that you may face. So we need to put premium on that.
Well, very interesting. And now, recently, Justice Biawakama came out and urged everyone to stay in their lane regarding the process of the elections that we're going to have. As regards, of course, the voters themselves to stay in their limitations, the security to stay in their limitations. So, I wanted to digest for us the mandate of the voters themselves, because somehow they turn out to be violent, because we have seen these campaigns. Someone is passing here and unfortunately meets the other camp. If they do not exchange a few fists here and there, then it will not be a successful.
Like a football match, the inevitability of you know, when there are divergences. And of course, one thing that I usually say is that when it comes to identity, the only purpose of identity, even political identity, is for differentiation. The only reason that identity exists is to differentiate you from me in terms of my ideology. And that perception of supremacy, that my ideology, my manifesto, and how I perceive that society should be is more important than yours, or should be held in higher regard. But yes, we are talking about issues concerning lanes, but I also wanted to introduce something, since you were talking about early warning signs, and he was speaking about, yes, the micro level, but also when he mentioned the pluralistic nature of Uganda in terms of ethnicities. Even we have issues concerning youth. The politicization of people's identities is one of the early warning signs. When you look at it through social media, when some political affiliated person says, now the Baganda, this are doing this now then calling on now we are having, let's do a healing with Baganda, or this is, sorry, I'm sorry. But the thing is that's when people start to change their attitudes. And that's when they begin to say, are we being manipulated? Is this right? What should we now go the other route? Also, when it comes to trust, not just the things that you can physically see, but as a person who does statistical research, there are different data sets that you can definitely say there's going to be an inevitable season of violence. Just by virtue of, if you look at the quality of governance and data set, in terms of how our institutions are, in terms of their dysfunctionality, the violence is going to be there. So it's not a matter of, yes, we want peaceful, transparent, free and fair elections that are absolutely 100% non-violent. But the thing is, how do we manage it? Yes, we are trying to increase our mechanisms of managing that violence, because it's almost impossible to eliminate it given how our society is right now. But yes, let's talk about the voters. The purpose of the voter is everything. The voter is the country. The voter's objective is to ensure that they are making a sound decision, a well-informed decision in terms of who they perceive as the perfect person to lead their constituency and their country. And they have to do it with respect. I mean, that is natural law. Even it's in the Bible, do unto others as you want to, how you would want to also be held. So there's nothing more to it than you're supposed to vote, you're supposed to ensure that you have information, and we cannot feign that I'm being violent based on ignorance. Because yes, there are different platforms that are giving information. We are giving information, but at the same time, us as citizens, we should also seek out the information, not only just to blame the other, but to also protect ourselves. To also be able to say, this is where I deserve justice. So, in terms of staying in their lane, that's their mandate. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Okay. There is also a very big problem, it's cyber violence. A politician puts something up, and these mostly, I believe, you can agree with me, these are the young people. They will abuse everything.
Yes. They
abuse everything. What is happening? And what direction are we? Because yes, some people are even using these platforms for campaigning, but the responses are too terrible. Yeah,
well, there's freedom of speech. I'm very sorry to say. I'm very sorry to say that on social media, we hardly have regulation. But then they are free to troll and say whatever it is that they want to say. But then at the same time, yes, we do trainings. Even in our Peace Institute, some of the courses that we are trying to roll out is, for instance, the identification of propaganda and that digital literacy. And now we also have artificial intelligence that we are integrating, because now there are deep fakes. You find someone uploading on DALI, ChatGPT, Sora, GPT, and then they put a picture of, let's say, the president or a politician, and then they lip sync for that politician to say something. So yes, it's complicated. The cyber violence does exist, but at the same time, we need to protect ourselves. I think for me, it's better to make it as a call to action. We need to protect ourselves. We need to educate ourselves to ensure that we know what is false and what is truth. So the Uganda Communications Commission, the Ministry of ICT, these are issues that they are trying to combat. Unfortunately, there have been cases and times during electoral cycles where they now switch off the social media, which is not right, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, because of the lack of capacity in terms of regulating and the limitations of regulating, that is the radical mechanism that they can use. So, of course, I'm not going to tell youth, please understand when they switch off your social media because they don't have the capacity, But at the end of the day, I think we need to learn, we need to be respectful. And actually, I'm sorry to say this, if some people might be offended, but sometimes the behavior of those in authority can, and in most cases, is influenced by the behavior of us as the citizens when we fail to hold each other accountable in terms of how we are, how our attitudes are, how we are trolling other people, how we are being abusive. So for me, the most I can say is that we need to be our own co-guarantors on the media and to call out people who are using it recklessly, to the extent that now we are being disenfranchised or being pushed out of those spaces for those who actually have useful information. So yes, I think we need to police each other. We need a community policing on the social media so that we can try to avoid the authorities from making radical decisions concerning the spaces. Yeah.
Wow. Now let me go back to Reverend.
I'm just wondering also whether, you see, we put a lot of attention around elections.
Yes.
And we forget that sometimes things build up. So that by the time of the elections, because people have not had the spaces to express themselves, then there's a sense of build up. And because there's a sense in which the people, the citizens now feel the power, that for once in the election they have the power. That's when they feel the power. That's when every other people, political players, they acknowledge that actually we have power, but actually the real power. So I think we need to find a way of creating spaces for conversation. Let me just make let me just make one proposal. We have a number of national days. We have a number of, like Independence Day, for instance. If I was leader, I would use those days differently. I would encourage people to gather at their sub-counties. And actually, independence, for instance, and say, really, we are independent now for how many years? Since 62. In your community, what is changing? What is changing to make this independence meaningful for you as a community? So in that sub-county. So that then we would have people say, no, this is not changing. Why is it not changing? What needs to be done? So that you create those spaces where people are able to express their dissatisfaction in a constructive way. And then the government would pick the sentiment, the feeling, the proposals to inform policy, to inform programming for the government. So that in that way you're not building up you're not building up tension and dissatisfaction until the electoral process. Every year a country should be able to reflect on what's going well, what's not going well, and that is really should be the interest of the of parliament, of the executive, of judiciary, to know how people are feeling and take appropriate action. Because if we're really there to serve the needs and welfare of the people. So for me, yes, we panic when we get to the elections, but part of that is our fault because we have allowed the tensions to build up and there's no space for them people to express them earlier. And now election is such a mixed bag, of emotions, of interests, so that's why we have these elections. So one way to minimize electoral violence is really to create other spaces for expression in between the elections.
Regulated spaces.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we shall also be able to look at the influence of security in regards to these elections. We saw what happened recently. But I believe that will be the discussion in our last lap of this interesting show. And now when we return, you'll also be able to engage with us. You can send in your messages on through YouTube or even call. So that is the segment we shall be going in for. But please let us take off these commercials.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Welcome to the final round of our today's discussion, and I really hope you're picking one or two things that you can be part of the team or the society that will drive a peaceful, fair, credible election come 2026. Well, and we have been discussing about peace generally and what it takes, and some of the strong strategies that have been brought up by the Interreligious Council of Uganda. And I believe you have been able to capture some of these. And if in case you've not, you can run to YouTube and get the entire show, and please be able to listen in as you see what can be done by us, the citizens, because it has been realized that everything starts with us and then follows to the next level. So my interest now to my panelists is about the
involvement of security in these elections that we're having. Recently we saw what happened with the cause, but in the long run you find the places. So what is the influence of security organs? And maybe I would have even asked which exact security organ is supposed to be involved, but well, I believe that will be a discussion for another day. So what is the influence of security in these elections?
Yeah, the security have a role. I think constitutionally the Electoral Commission uses the police to help with law and order enforcement during the electoral period. Increasingly, we have seen the army come in to play a role. The expectation would have been that if this is my primary responsibility, if I call for support, then the person who comes to support must work within my guidelines.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you don't come with your protocol. You must come to work within my guidelines. So I think that is one area, you know, that in so much as police has always argued that the work is overwhelming, we will have to call on other institutions, sister institutions to help us. Then the expectation is that those people must be oriented and must act within the guidelines that are provided for you as the primary, or the principal person in charge of ensuring security. So that's one lapse, that's one gap. When they come and then they're acting and the command structure is different, then you are likely to have the issues we have. And the other one is meandering into partisan politics. It's the same thing with the army. The army is a national army. They are supposed to serve the interests, of the nation. They must.
Kind of affiliate told them during elections they're supposed to be around borders, not
precisely. If our threats are seen to be by borders, they should be there because that's part of their primary responsibility. If they have been co-opted to support, they should act within the guidelines of the police. But so you have therefore people out of personal interest, that begin to use their positions to advance personal political ambitions. So just as it is dangerous for the religious leaders to do that, it is similarly dangerous for people in the security to begin to use their positions to serve their personal political ambitions. And I think that's where the problem lies. The army should not be serving a regime. That's not how the army is constituted. The army is a national army. If it is indeed recruited with that mindset anyway, I'm making some assumptions here, that the army therefore should be serving and acting within the code of conduct that's provided by the Constitution. So, but because we are in a world of human beings with personal interests and failures and temptations, and sometimes we can't stand up to the temptations, we have these challenges of the security, even using national apparatus to brutalize the citizens, whose taxes have been used to buy those. So those contradictions. You see, that's why for us as Intelligence Council of Uganda, in our framework for mobilizing for peaceful and credible elections, we are going to be engaging with the police commander, the security, the RDCs, to help ourselves understand that we have a greater obligation, to work for the stability of the country. And if the interests of a certain political party contradict with a constitutional role, that we will have the courage to stand up for what is right, you know. And also for those in charge, especially the commanders, to begin to appreciate, to learn from history. You see, these are the challenges. You know, learn from history. You as the commander in that position, ask, how are my successive people in previous regimes or years, how have they lived out their role? You know? Is it commendable? Is this something that's inspirational for me? Or did they fail? So how do I guard myself in my role now as a commander? Not fall into the mistakes of those who have gone back in the past. So I think we have a wonderful motto, by the way, you know, for God and my what? My country. It's a good yardstick in decision making, I think, that we need to be using all the time. If you are caught up in a precarious situation, ask, how does this serve God? Is this honoring God and His purposes for His people? Ask, for God and my country, is it serving the broad national interests of the country? So we already have a yardstick that we can use.
So security is a very big, important aspect when it comes to the election period itself. But somehow, somewhere we have seen misuse. So to a citizen, to a Luke Alinaito out there, happily enjoying campaigns and all that, then we have this heavy deployment of security operatives and all that. How should we respond? How should the citizens respond to such?
That's a tough one, I have to say. Because this, if we're looking at the context, we can't just look at it from just a unidimensional or cross-sectional snapshot in time. But this is something that is happening again and again and again. So if it's a first time, you're appalled. If it's a second time, you're thinking, okay, what avenues can I go to? Can I go through to be able to access what I'm supposed to access? But if it's continuous in a nation like ours, then these are human beings. And they can retaliate. They will retaliate if the security forces are not acting within their mandate. Mask that they wear and make it seem like, you know, they're going to the bush and so on. It's very intimidating. It's unnecessary. It gives people this impression that you are here to murder us, that we are your belligerents, and therefore let's engage. And the militarization of our country has, I don't know how to articulate this sensitively, but it is even influencing political parties to dress in military wear, you know, because that is the perception of what true power and Pan-Africanism, and it's no wonder young people are becoming apathetic. And surprisingly, it's people who are in the elite or peri-elite or something like that, I don't know if I just made that up, who don't even go and vote. The ones who even have information, the ones who are supposed to give them information, the ones who cannot be corrupted, the ones who cannot be bribed. So I think it's systemic failure. And on the side of religious leaders, yes, we are not 100% detached, as much as we would like to say, you know, that we are we are autonomous. You know, it's unfortunate that there are still some linkages that we are trying to break away from the state, but we need to call out these institutions and tell them that what they're doing is not right. And of course, you've seen the Interreligious Council, they have a say in the legal processes and in policy. And I think, of course, like he mentioned, we are engaging these security forces, not just because we want to tell them, please stay in your lane, but we also need to have an understanding of why are you not staying in your lane? And what capacity do you need? How can we lobby? Is it an issue of funding? Is it an issue of overfunding? Because, I've mentioned this before, that there is a direct correlation between high levels of military budget and violence because of rent seeking. So, yeah, we are really trying hard to see to it that we can support them, and they can also be able to stay within their mandate. And on the side of the citizens, when they're experiencing such, and God forbid, because I once was on a panel with the Uganda Media Sector Working Group, and it was World Press Freedom Day, and I was seated next to Abubakar, someone who was, beaten by this, forces, and it's very terrible, because this is a human being who has, you have to respect their dignity and integrity, and he also is doing what he's supposed to do. So, yeah, it's best not to engage, because you are also going to shoot yourself in the foot. So we have to try as much as possible not to escalate, but also work together. We are here as Interreligious Council, we are here as our Department in Peace and Governance to try as much as possible to support and deter this violence as much as possible. And we want to work with the citizens. We want to hear what they have to say and the contributions they can make in terms of strengthening these violence prevention efforts.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Now we are, I think next month we are going to be starting off the NRM primaries, elections, and then that will be the start of everything. What is the role of media in this regard? People are going to storm radio stations, TV stations, social media, everything to speak about what they have. But what is the mandate? What is our role?
What's your role?
What is your role?
I need to be guided so that I can know my limitations.
Joanna, what do you think your role is?
Tell us. I mean, it's based on the values and ethics and principles. There are some boundaries you can't cross. You have to make sure that you're doing scientific investigation. You're giving proper information. You're looking for truth. You're not being bought. You have to be impartial. So, in terms of
there's influence.
There is influence, but the thing is that are you influenced? As you.
Me, no.
Exactly. So now you also need to make sure that the people around you are not influenced. And you need to reach out to the proper authorities and let them know that, there are some people who say snitches get stitches. Like if you snitch, if you go and report, you're going to be in trouble. But then, unfortunately, you have to protect the sanctity of the media. You need to make sure that the people around you, the institutions, are working, they are functional. So I think it's quite hilarious to even say there is influence, when you yourself are in journalism. But I think this is a question for you and for other people in the media to ponder on. If you're in the media and then you say, but there is influence, isn't that defeatist?
It is.
It is. It's defeatist. So I think it's upon the people in the media to also be co-guarantors of themselves, to look out for each other, support each other. Like if you're harassed by the police, you stand up, you rise up. But at the same time, if those within your domain are behaving in a way that they are not supposed to, you also need to stand up and make sure that they are trying to consolidate our democracy, because it's not just for democracy's sake and political sake, but also for you as an individual, for your family, and for those people who you love.
Okay. Very interesting one.
Yeah, but I think, of course, as in the electoral process, there is what we call national media. And I think as per the law, it is expected to provide fairness to all the participating
political parties.
So we hope that the media, the national media, will be able to respect that. In my previous role as National Coordinator for Democracy Monitoring Group, we had established a framework where we're monitoring the coverage of various media houses of the campaign. And so we were able to say there was unfairness here, there was unfairness here, there was unfairness. And we use that as an engagement with the media. I don't know whether our media people are organized like that these days, but that's how we used to do it when we were doing election democracy monitoring. So, the issue of fairness, we recognize, of course, that each media house has its management and has
affiliation.
And guidance. But I think there should be a shared principles, values, of equity and fairness. And that you do not allow your media house to be used as a campaign tool against other candidates. Yours is to bring information to the population and in a manner that helps the population to make their choice, not for you. We don't want media to play the propaganda role, because then that becomes very dangerous. And we are hoping that there should be some monitoring of the media, of the social media, that where there are cases where people are using the media to incite and whatnot, I think we need some actions, some engagement, platform for engagement. We're not talking about harassment. We're talking about education, because many people do these things without knowing the consequences. So I think if it were possible, I think maybe something we need to explore with the commission.
And we
established a platform where each cases that are coming through the social media, we invite the people responsible and we have a conversation. Because we think that's part of the education that they need to have, instead of just intimidating them or just harassing them or imprisoning them, but really helping them and educating them to appreciate that they have a responsibility of building stability in the country, and that will not be achieved through that kind of reporting.
And lastly, like we mentioned, we are compiling pocket handbooks for these electoral codes of conduct, for the security forces, for the political parties, and even for the media. And the media has the most important role to play, because when it comes to knowledge management and information, which influences mindsets, it's a double-edged sword. It can either create escalation, negative perceptions of the other, or really strengthen and build capacities of people to do what they're supposed to do. But at the same time, we have had conversations with the Uganda Communications Commission, and that is the authority that oversees all issues concerning media. And we did have discussions about the gaps that the gaps they have, about the role that they play in terms of regulating. Even sometimes they give suspensions to journalists, listen to their, of course, they sanction. So I'm also hoping not just, let's say, the role of the media, but also the role of the authorities in charge of the media to make sure that they are stable and functioning the way they're supposed to function. Yeah.
That's a great one. Because there has even been intimidations to some houses. If you don't do this, your license will be off. Anyway, that is maybe we could discuss media on a specific day. As well, as we wind up, there is one angle we did not tackle: the role of those who are going to be standing on different positions. What their role is. So maybe if you can give us just 2 minutes of that, as you also give us your concluding remarks in just a few minutes.
Well, first of all, we'd like to appreciate that a number of people are offering themselves for elective positions. We don't quite understand why there are so many, but we want to assume that they are motivated by the desire of serving their country in this way, because you can serve the country in many other ways. the unfortunate part of this is that the investment that people are putting into this.
Too much.
Yeah. And which gives the impression that people are looking at this as an investment out of which they are going to benefit later. So that is really our discomfort, our area of discomfort. But also, we need to, civic education must not stop with the citizens only. I think the people participating need some education, some kind of platform to help them understand what they are getting into and the responsibilities, to broaden their mindsets, to understand that they are moving from maybe from a parochial, serving at a parochial level, you're now moving maybe to a district or to the nation. And so how do you, in the civil service, people are helped to go through ladders. So by the time people get to a certain level, they know the culture, the whatnot. So I think we need to help these leaders develop the right culture for what they are aspiring for. So I think that's really the challenge that we have. I don't know, Electoral Commission, maybe us, but I think there's a gap there. And then the attitude of knowing that you can win an election, you can lose an election. And that's why you see the motivation is important. If a person is motivated and he looks at this participation as an investment, and he sells the house and land to try and get into it, if he loses, then it is war.
Yes.
Because he has lost a future. But if the motivation was service, and the person presented himself, his credentials, and if he lost, then he will be looking for other opportunities for service. So we appeal to those who are aspiring for leadership to please interrogate your interests. Why are you interested in this? And be able to examine those the conflicting interests that you are struggling with, and seek guidance. Seek guidance to people who will help. Don't seek guidance to your campaign aspirants, but the people who can actually guide you in working through your emotions and ambitions, and so that you can be properly guided. I think, and then prepare your mind that there is a possibility for you to lose. So what are the implications for that for you? So we there are responsibilities there for various institutions, as I've outlined them. Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. To be honest, when you ask what is their role, I don't know. Their role is to stand. Their role is to convince me, is to convince the citizens that they are worthy of being in leadership, of leading me, making sure that, I'm also benefiting from the gains of our society in terms of the economy and so on and so forth. But for me, what I would want is, what is my role when it comes to them? My role is to interrogate their interests, to make sure that their interests are aligned with the Uganda we want. Yes, because when we talk about their role, it's just to do what they have to just stand and propose and create their manifestos and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it is my role when it comes to them that is the most important. And my role is to seek information, proper information that will let me make a decision, a proper decision, if this is the person that I want to take the reins of that jurisdiction or my constituency. Yeah.
Wow. Some of them are very old. I believe it is because we don't have age limits anywhere. And we have the freedom at any age, provided you're above 18. So I want to appreciate my panelists here today. Thank you so much for the knowledge that you've shared with us in regards to having a peaceful, free, fair election come 2026. And I believe people out there have managed to pick up one or two things from the discussion. I also want to appreciate you, the viewer, for spending all this precious time from 10
until now that we are sending out. One big call that has been made out there, please be yourself when you're going out there. It is a matter of you and the future. Some of you are going into elective positions for investments and for development gains, but it should be service. Also, the electorates, the voters, you should know your lane. You should know where to stop. Also, stop demanding things that are not really realistic. You're demanding for a kilogram of sugar, things like that. Those are things that have hindered the political space. And of course, for them, for the leaders to come just with a will of investing, all that. Anyway, we cannot go past this. I want to appreciate you for joining us. More programs coming up. And for now, it is a precious day for you. Please, my name is Luke Majumba. Have a lovely one.